Welcome everybody to this episode of Adding the Impact podcast. I'm so excited to be introducing you to my gorgeous friend, Sam Hind. Sam and I have known one another now for, oh my goodness, what are we now?
I'm going to say like 15 years.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 15 years. It is. It's about, that's what I was going to say. So 15 years in many different ways. Friendship first, coaching, direct selling, all sorts of this kind of thing. We were just laughing, if you're wondering, why have I got the giggles? We're just laughing about the multiple personalities I have.
in my life. And literally every time you ring me, you have to announce which one is calling me so that I'm prepared for the direction that our conversation will go. So today we've got a new personality, and that's Podcast Celine.
I know I've got to put Mama Celine as Coach Celine's side. She's for Celine's side. I'm going to podcast Celine today. So, yes, so for those of you just getting to know me, you'll get to know different personalities over time. But, each of them are fun. I want to officially introduce gorgeous Sam, if you had the pleasure of already getting to know her. So, officially, she is Sam Hind of Global is the selling industry's social media expert. With passion for the industry that started with her first direct selling business at the age of 14, she's now the host of Direct Selling Accelerator podcast, a global keynote speaker, and a social media challenger. Her and her husband Greg were recognized as the collaborators of the year in 2021 by Direct Selling Australia and 2023 Best on Social Media by Direct Selling America for their contribution to the industry. Their company, Oksana, has simplified social media and helped thousands of direct sellers globally to grow their businesses. Even more important than that, she is amazing. She is a beautiful mother, and she's also a darling friend. So welcome, Sam, and thank you so much.
I'm so excited to be here. I don't often get to be on this side of the podcast, so I'm like all yours today.
And it's so exciting because I actually think, and I was trying to think back, but I actually think that the first podcast I was ever a guest on was yours.
Well, I was thinking about this today because you've obviously just launched this amazing podcast, and congratulations, by the way. This is so exciting. But we just recorded our 200th podcast episode, which you were a guest on, of course, but I think you were also one of our very first ever guests when we started. So
I think so, yeah. I think I was thinking back. I've been on your podcast a few times now, but I actually think I was one of the very early ones on there, which I was really honoured to. But I think I cut my teeth on your podcast, so thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And look at where it's led. Now you've got your own podcast, and I can't wait to be on your 200th episode.
Absolutely.
In 4 years' time.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's exciting. And what I love about this whole medium, though, is because the podcast is called Adding the Impact. And what I love about this gives us the opportunity to be able to add impact in places that we may not have reached before. So we just don't ever know where this shared to. So what I just say to you is, if you've happened across this podcast and you're wondering how, I don't believe that coincidence. I know you're here for a reason. I know that you're here to be able to hear from the beautiful Sam. And then I'm going to encourage you later on. We'll make sure we put to check out her podcast because she has had some absolutely, truly amazing guests over the years, including myself. That's okay.
Including Podcast Celine, yes.
Including Podcast Celine. So, Sam, to get us going, tell me something that people might not know about you.
Oh my gosh, you didn't prepare me for that. Something that people might not know about me. Well, look, I mean, I'm a pretty open book, and one of the reasons that we are where we are today is because, Greg and I chose to be so transparent about our journey in business and our journey in the industry. And so there's not a whole lot I don't tell people about, including the very crazy journey that we've just been on. We've got 4 beautiful kids who are almost in their teens. Our eldest is 18. My youngest, up until 5 months ago, is almost 12. And then Greg and I decided to go back and have another bubba. So we are just going through the thick of, newborn baby time again, which is kind of crazy. But, and again, when we're speaking and sharing, we're talking a lot about those backstories. But, one of the things that I think a lot of people probably don't know that I don't talk about a lot, and I'm trying to be a little bit more verbal about it, is this concept of balancing. A lot of people will say, how are you such a super mum? How do you get it? How do you do it all? How do you have the business, the marriage, the kids, and have, this life where you travel the globe? And, I realize, I hate that word super mum, because I feel like we all, and the truth because you and I are very close, but the truth is that we're all going through our massive challenges. And, the last 5 months have been an insane roller coaster for us, with teenagers, with a baby, with a business, and I don't have it all together. Not many people would know that. You would think I had it all together, wouldn't you?
I'm just impressed. So for those of you who don't know, there's a baby close by somewhere. I know the great
20 minutes that way.
Exactly. Greg probably has her just, off to one side, or maybe up in the kitchen or whatever. But I'm so impressed. You've got it all together. Friends, you got the lipstick on. You're lucky. You got actually a clean shirt. I can't see any.
What you can't see is I'm wearing jeans and thongs right now underneath this desk, and I threw the lipstick on about 10 minutes ago before I had to come in here. This is the thing. You told me this. We've got to stop comparing ourselves to other people, because you only ever see the highlight reel. They only ever show you the highlight reel, and I've decided that's it. I'm done with highlight reels. I want to start sharing with people what goes on behind the camera of my world, because I don't love at all that people compare themselves to each other the way that they do, especially when it comes to being women in business. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves. We don't need to add to that, the pressure that we feel when we watch other people. And I don't want to be somebody who ever makes anyone feel any more pressure because they're looking at me going, oh, she's got it together and I don't. I need to be more like that. No, you don't. We've all got crazy stuff going on behind the scenes, and you know what, I'm still, the baby threw up on me 15 minutes ago, and all of those things are still happening in my world.
It's all real life.
It's all real life.
I love it. I actually love how the direction that this conversation has gone, to the listeners. By the way, we actually never know where the conversation is going to go. Always will go down the path somebody needs to hear. So I'm actually really thrilled, because if we think about, it'll be direct sellers that are probably going to be listening to this, but it doesn't matter whether you are or whether you aren't. The struggle is real. If you're a woman in business, it happens to be maybe a wife, a mother, a grandmother, whatever season that you might be in. And myself and Sharon, a friend of ours as well, had a conversation around, how important it is to really get to know yourself, who you are. And one of the tools, of course, she uses the Enneagram. And Sam, I know that you've done that as well. Yep. But I think it's so important, because when you get a space of actually truly understanding who you are, and you give yourself permission not to compare yourself to anybody else, you get to be able to get into doing the best that you can each day. And it took me many years to actually learn that, probably more towards my woman of wisdom age rather than earlier on. I love to try and impart that to beautiful women like yourself, to go, because Sam, you're truly doing an amazing job. You have complexities of a blended family. Deciding that, you guys are wanting to be able to bless us all with another beautiful princess, and Addie is just gorgeous. But that's all lovely. That is all lovely. But behind the reality is the struggle is real. Yeah. And so what I know about you, though, and I know about the amazing women and grandmothers and wives and all that in this arena, is that they do all of that. They still show up because they want to be able to make an impact. They want to be able to add an impact. And adding an impact is in your life, by being able to create that additional income to be able to say yes to more. Or it's actually a bigger impact that we grow into. So, making a difference in the world or in the profession that you're in, or whatever that might look like. Don't ever compare yourself to anyone else, because just by waking up this morning and being able to step one in front of the other and do whatever it was, whether it is looking after your children, whether it is building a business, whether it is doing, whether you're in ministry, whatever it might be, the fact that you got up this morning, you showed up and you were prepared to step into the world is that you're adding an impact. So Sam, I wanted to say to you and to all the mums out there you're doing a brilliant job. There will be some days where you will be grateful that you got out of bed and managed to get back into bed, and the other days you'll slay. It's like I'm saying, we will either be praying or slaying, and sometimes both on the same day.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100%. Look, it's funny because I was having this conversation with somebody on my own podcast just a couple of days ago, and she said that she goes into every day not competing with the world and not competing with other people, but competing with herself. And I thought, what a powerful thing or mindset to have, because you can compete with others and eventually you could get to the top, and then what? What do you do? But if you're always competing with yourself, you can always be that 1% better. Every day you can be that 1% better. But, the other thing too is, and this is actually, I'm such a big advocate for, surrounding yourself with the right people at all times. And when I first went into business, you were one of the people that I had in my corner, and I've always had a business coach. I was so blessed to have you as one of my very first ever business coaches. And at that stage, I wasn't in direct selling. I was teaching direct sellers. So, I'd started this business, didn't know exactly which way it was going to go and how it was going to all pan out. And by jumping into this space, one of the things was that, I was learning very quickly that those people around us provide us with wisdom constantly. And, iron sharpens iron, people sharpen people. And, one of the amazing people that you actually introduced me to, it was actually at one of the first Juice Plus conferences I ever spoke at. I remember her ringing me one day, and I said to her, wow, you are just, every time I speak to you on the phone, you are so bright and so bubbly, and you just make me feel joy. And that was the word I threw out. And she goes, oh, well, that's intentional. And I went, what are you talking about? She said, well, I can't control how people perceive me. She said, I can't control what the world does. I can't control what happens to me. She said, I can't control the news, but what I can control is my intention to the way I show up. And she said that I set myself this intention a few years ago that I would leave everyone that came in contact with me feeling more joy than they did before that interaction, whether it's on the phone, whether it's on social media, whether it's in person, whatever it happens to be. And she said, and that goes for my family, it goes for my friends, it goes for business, it's everything. And she said, by showing up intentionally, it means that I can make the choice to step in or out of an interaction as well. If I can't bring that joy to the table, then I don't answer the phone or I don't walk into the room. I stop, I reset myself, and I'm intentional about how I show up. And, just to what you were saying, Celine, I think one of the things that we're so passionate about is the ripple effect. And the fact that, some of the people that we're here to impact will only ever impact another one individual. They may impact hundreds or thousands. It's not up to us how big the impact it is. When you go into any kind of interaction, remember that there is a ripple effect, and the impact you have will flow on to the next person and then the next person. And so, by showing up, like you said, every day, getting out of bed, showing up and doing what we do as our true selves, not as the version of us that we think we have to be, we get to have a ripple effect. And, a few weeks ago, and this struggle over the last 5 months has been, actually, it's not been the last 5 months, it's been the last couple of years, because, Greg and I have been through quite the journey with pregnancy loss. We then, fell pregnant with Adeline, and that was a journey in itself, because we were also battling some crazy teenage life things that have been going on here, and business and all the things that go with marriage, which I don't know if anyone else has it differently, but marriage is tough. And then when Adeline was born, the picture didn't look exactly like I thought it would. She decided very early on that she just simply didn't want to breastfeed. It was just not what she wanted to do. And yet it was what I so desperately wanted. And so I remember literally being holed up in my bedroom. For weeks, I didn't leave my bedroom. I just sat with her, persisting. And I wasn't at work at the time. I'd taken a bit of time off. Our amazing team was holding up the fort, and I didn't show up. And it was the first time in years I wasn't doing lives, podcasts. I just wasn't on camera. And then one day I just went, hang on a second. That's me showing people the highlight reel. Right now there's a real low light going on. So it's not the highlight reel. But maybe there's someone who needs to hear this part of the journey too, because maybe there's other people that are holed up in their bedroom right now and don't know who to talk to. So I decided, I went for a walk, I grabbed my phone, and I literally just did a little live story to Instagram, just saying, hey, you know what? Like, I'm sick of seeing all these perfect pictures of mums with these newborn babies, bouncing them around, showing everyone their amazing post-birth bodies and, their baby breastfeeding and everything going perfectly. And I said, that's not real. That's not what it's like I don't believe it's even like that for them, let alone everybody else. And so I just said, it's tough. And I shared a few of those little things, and within minutes, I had dozens, and then by the end of the day, I had hundreds of messages, people that privately had reached out and just went, thank you so much. I'm going to show this to my daughter. I'm going to show this to my sister. I'm going to show this to my friend, because there are other people that are struggling in that space that just people aren't talking about this stuff.
I know. And it's so interesting because, when we first met, you were an independent mama of ones, a few weeks old. And so, your journey along the way has been that roller coaster ride. It is for everyone. It's just that oftentimes we don't get to be the front row seat and have the opportunity to be able to speak into lives. And what you did, I remember watching that you just spoke about, the video, and I really did feel that it was so important, because the reality is that for some they might have got it together, but it won't be every single day. And so if we're only showing what's good, if we're only showing the highlight reel, it's very very hard to build authentic relationships, because all that people do is compare and go, well, I'm not going to be good enough to be in that space. It also sets people, and I've watched this happen as well over the years, and especially with the advent of social media. So it is amazing, but it's also a real curse at times, because of the fact that it sets people up for I don't know, for sorrow in some ways, because they look at laying out there, and when their lives are not matching it, and they're doing this whole comparison thing, then they basically are at somebody's either chapter 50 and they're only at a chapter 5, and they're wondering why their life is not like that, or they're comparing with a completely unrealistic option. And I've seen it happen where it really leads people down a path of destruction, because they literally think, and even depression and that as well, because they really think that that's how it all should look. And we know, having walked the journey, that it's not like that at all. It's about, now, I'm not saying also, and I don't think that you're saying this either, Sam, that it's literally like you air your dirty light.
Oh, gosh, no. Absolutely not.
It's not that space. But there's a difference, isn't there, between being and authentic.
Yeah. And, I know we've heard that word thrown around so much. My job is teaching social media to the direct selling industry. That's what we do in a nutshell. And, when it comes to social media, we see so many mistakes. But the word authenticity has been thrown around so much, but I don't think anyone actually, that's a broad statement there. I think a lot of people don't use authenticity the right way. And when it comes to social media, the thing that we're hungry for, the thing that we want, is stuff that feels real. And we know when someone is being real, and we know when they're being fake. The thing is, we want to believe the real, but then we also compare ourselves to it. And so I've seen this pattern where, particularly when we first come into contact with a field. So if we speak at a conference for the very first time, we're dealing with that field for the very first time. the overwhelming response from people initially is the reason I don't do social media right now, or I'm not showing up, is because I feel like I'm not good enough. And it's that feeling of I need to be more like that person and less like me if I'm going to be successful in this business. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The thing that makes this industry so powerful and where people really stand out is when people can feel connected. And that connection, that human, raw, real, relatable, authentic content is what people want to see. But like you said, you also don't want to overshare either, and there's that middle ground, like what's appropriate for me to share and what's not. And I kind of liken it to a car crash. It's like if you're driving past a car crash, you're gonna look, you want to see what's going on, is anyone hurt, is everyone okay, like what happened, we're curious. But you wouldn't get out of the car and run into the middle of it and be a part of it. You want to keep driving past. And it's like that with your business on social media. If people see your social media as a bit of a car crash and you're constantly airing all your dirty laundry, they're going to watch because it's like watching a car crash, but they're not going to do business with you because that's running into the middle of the accident. So
yeah, I love that. That's a really great analogy, actually, Sam. It really is. It can be, it can be that some people think that the way to build is by just constantly looking for sympathy, but people get to the stage where unfollow as well, because it's like, I was chatting on another podcast and we were just talking about how important it is to be really mindful of what is feeding your mind. And what you watch and follow on social media is feeding your mind, because for a lot of people, it actually takes a lot of their day. Even if it's just, accidentally, you pick up the phone and you scroll on, you open up Facebook or Instagram or whatever like that, and next thing you know, whatever has popped up there is that, what do you want that to be? What do you want it is that if you've opened it up and it's 1 minutes, what that you want to be showing up there? How are you wanting to be feeding your mind? Who are the people you want interacting with? Who are the people you want to be speaking over your life? Because that's reality, is what's actually happening. Every time you open there's an impact that is following. And I think we forget that. I think sometimes people they go on to social media for entertainment. Or in our case, a lot of direct sellers, it's about, yes, they go on there to build business. But in reality, when I'm asking and we're having conversations or we're doing trainings and I go, how many of you go maybe to put up a post and, 2 hours later, you're wondering how many cat videos you watched, or, oh my gosh, I can tell you what everybody's done, but I'm not sure I built my business.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, your most precious commodity is your time. The one thing you can't ever get back is your time. And so, it's important that you curate your own content. The question, like you said, is this feeding me, or is this detracting? Is this taking energy from me? Because, you've got a purpose. We all have a purpose. And we've all got times where we sit there and, we numb ourselves with a bit of social media. But the question is, can you afford to do that? You've got a legacy to leave. You've got a business to build. You've got, people to impact. And how much of that time that you could be doing those things do you want to spend, giving that energy instead to avoid, essentially. But curating your content is important. And one of the things that you can do, you don't have to unfollow things. You can actually just tell Facebook that you don't want that stuff to be delivered to your feed anymore. I've actually got some friends who I love dearly. They're very special people, but I'm a real believer in, we are the sum of the people we surround ourselves most with. And by the way, that doesn't only include the people we have a physical relationship with. It's also people that may never meet you. Greg and I really respect a lot of the stuff that Tony Robbins does. And so we, do a lot of his learning. We surround ourselves with his stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean he knows who we are or he's part of that conversation all of the time. so, when it comes to your content, if you've got people in your life that you love, you don't want to unfriend them necessarily, but their content is dragging you down. You kind of feel your energy leaving when you see their stuff. Just hide it from your feed, and you can say hide all posts. I've got some people I've been friends with for years. I never see any of their stuff anymore because I'm sick of the complaining, and I always feel myself sapped of energy when I see their gear, and I think it's not actually helping me be a better version of myself.
Yeah.
So I don't need to see it.
I love that, actually, because if you think about it from what we're talking about, because people might say, oh, well, is this kind of, are you kind of contradicting what you just said earlier on about being real and being vulnerable and being authentic? And the answer to that is no, because you'll feel energetically, and I think it's a really great way to actually gauge when you're interacting, and this is whether you're interacting in person, via technology, on social or whatever, like when you see somebody's posts or you meet somebody, you'll know whether your energy is deflated or elevated. Mm-hmm. You'll actually feel it. And that's exactly the same on social media. And it's the same. I've done the same. I have unfollowed people or hid stuff or whatever it might be because I still love them. I love them as people. I just don't need that to be flowing into my energy field. Yeah. When you get to a stage where I look at, I want to be able to create, massive impact in the world. If energy to do that, I need it, and I need positive, good energy to be able to actually really do that. So I'm feeding myself those kind of negative stories. That's very different. As I said, when you read a vulnerable post, you can tell the person is being authentic or they're just chasing likes or chasing whatever comments or whatever like that. You can tell when I knew you were speaking from your heart. It wasn't a woe is me or whatever like that. It was actually just sharing. But then, primarily your stuff is positive and uplifting. So I knew in that space it was just an authentic share that was so important for a conversation to be able to be had. So I think just being mindful of that, asking yourself if you were following after you interacted with your own content, how would you actually feel? I think that's actually to think about.
Yeah. And I think too, listen to your heart space as well. Sometimes my best content comes out of being present in the moment and just knowing when it's the right time to share something as well. And that's not strategically thought through. I didn't, think to myself, right, my strategy today is I'm going to share something heartfelt. This is something I know through conversations I have with my clients, with my friends, that this is something other people are experiencing. They're just not talking about it. And I was like, am I going to be the one to talk about this maybe today? Maybe that's what I need to do. And it's seizing that moment, because if you wait, if you plan it, and this is the key here. By the way, on this particular day, I'd gone for a walk and then I'd gone for a run, which was quite spontaneous. It was my first run after I'd had Addie. So I think it was 6 weeks in. And I was sweaty. I had no makeup on, and of course, feeling gross. Like, I've just had a baby. Everything's leaking. So there's just like nothing attractive about me at that time. And so, sweat pouring everywhere. And I thought, you know what? There is no point in me showing up perfect, because that defeats the purpose. That's not real. That's not authentic. That's the highlight reel. And I'm sick of highlight reels. So I just pulled my phone out of my pocket and I showed up sweating. And I think that's what people relate to, is the fact that they're going, actually, I feel like I'm seeing behind the scenes here. I'm part of your world and you're letting me in. And again, it's not oversharing. I didn't tell all of the gory details of what was going on. I just shared a few thoughts about how I felt, about how, mums were showing up on social media, and I was opting not to be that mum. I was being the one that showed up with all the
mess.
That's the word, with all the mess. I think that was the word I used in the video as well. It's messy, I think, is how I started it.
Being it's messy but beautiful. It's messy but beautiful.
It didn't feel beautiful at the time, let me tell you. Still, sometimes it doesn't feel so beautiful.
I know. But I think that's the thing. Like, I know even when I was chatting with Shaz, we were just talking about that some of our greatest blessings are actually in the hard times. It's in the suffering, the grief, the lessons. It's actually there. Our great lessons where we truly find ourselves. We find who we are, we find what our we find what that we can actually, cope with. We learn through there. Should we choose to? We can also sit in it and just and stay in that space. But I know that that's not who you are, and I know that's not who I am, and many people that are watching here. The gift that we can give you is that, if right now you're in a hot mess, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. Honor it. Honor the journey you are on, but also look at, what are the lessons? And the lesson could be just actually down. I need to just this time. I need to allow myself to feel. I need to have a snotty cry, whatever that might be. Just, but also look around you. What I love about our profession is that we are literally a sisterhood of women that want to support, have walked the journey. There will be many amazing women who have walked the journey before you. Lean into that wisdom. It's just so important to get to this same message. It's something that we don't do so well in our Australian society and in all kind of first world. We don't do it as well. Whereas, a lot of other, cultures and that will actually lean into the wisdom of those that have actually walked before us, because they've got the scars, they've got the bruises, got the t-shirt. Right? We know what it's like, and we can kind of go, alrighty, it's okay, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to hear the moment.
It's interesting that you say that. I'm also a really big believer in, sometimes the message we need to share is actually, it's given to us. The question is, are we listening? And, today I was thinking to myself, I had a look at the podcast notes. It's interesting because I obviously run my own podcast, and I'll always send kind of some rough questions I'm going to ask the person. And so I thought, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to check out those questions. And you hadn't given me any. I was like, oh my gosh, we could end up talking about literally anything today. And it actually dropped into my heart that one of the things that I felt might come up today that I might need to speak into was actually my word for the year, which is presence. And the fact that if I were to go back and look at all the experiences that I've had and take one thing that I've learned from all of those as I move forward, and it would be that word presence, but it's the fact that we talk about being present in the good moments. One of the things that I've had a realization of this year, particularly because of the rough trot that we've had over the last couple of years, is that even in the tough times, you will regret not being present in those, because there are moments, as hard as they can be, that you learn from, that you wish you will always, you might not wish the pain again, but you'll want to see, because with every tough thing we go through, there's a good and a bad, there's a positive and negative, there's a, you and I both believe in the duality of every situation. When one person is berating you, another person is loving you. When, someone is giving you a hard time, somebody is supporting you, and there's always that balancing act going on. But, if I look back at the time that we met, I had a 3-week-old baby. My husband and I had literally separated while he was 3 weeks old. And so I had a newborn and a 3-year-old, and I was the hot mess. And one of the regrets I have about that time, as horrible as that was, is I wish I'd been more present in it, because that was one of the biggest times that shaped who I am today. And there are some parts to that I wish I could remember better, even the hurtful parts, because it would allow me to be able to be more of a support to other people going through something similar now. And even, with your kids, one of the things I know about Adeline right now is when my boys were babies, and any mum who's been through that baby period knows what I'm saying when I say this. Everyone warns you about how tough it's going to be, the sleepless nights, the first time they get sick, all of those things. But in all of those moments, when they get older, when they grow up, you look back and you love those moments, because you think, oh, I remember that night I was up all night with them in my arms, rocking them to sleep. And you don't remember it as a horrible experience. At the time, it felt tough, but you look back on it and go, I wish I could go back there for a moment and have that sleepless night again. I wish I could go back there and I could have that sick baby in my arms again and I could be there comforting them. Not because you want those bad things to happen again, but because those moments form who you are today. And we need, like, you will regret not being present in the tough times. So, you know, and it's hard to say that as you go through tough times. Like, I know I'm going to hate myself saying this tomorrow because I'll be like, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to be present in it. It's hard, but it forms you, it molds you. You know, I saw a really great quote this morning and it said, we all hate walking up hills, but they make your legs stronger. And, you know, it was just such a good reminder of that. Just be in it, like be present in it, because one day you'll regret it if you weren't.
Totally. And, you know, even the kids analogy that you talk about, like, you mean, it might be the times when they're in your bed or whatever like that, but I can guarantee you, and now as a grandmother, I can tell you that you look back going, oh my gosh, those times of those cuddles and when they needed you and all the rest kind of thing were just, you know, they were so beautiful. And, you know, I'm just going to give a shout out to all the grannies now, because you know what? We get to do it all over again. And it's cool because we get to actually probably be even more present now because we've not got everything else going on when you're a mom happening. So if you think
you're also not the one worrying about stuffing them up because you know someone else is doing that.
Totally, absolutely. I mean, I cheered when we got each of them to 18 and then each of them 21 and then each of them married. And now it's kind of like, yes, we made it. We got them there. We didn't kill them. They're still alive.
They're alive. We did it. They're still talking to me. My goal is just to have them still talking to me when they get to 21. That's like, I'll count that as winning.
Oh, look, you know, we were laughing the other day. Dan, I remember one morning he was whinging. He didn't want to go to school and he was, you know, looking like, you know, saying, going to school, there's nothing wrong with you, and off you went kind of thing, or whatever like that. Next thing we get a phone call about an hour later from the school. Can you come get him? And he had an appendicitis.
He what?
He had an appendicitis.
Oh my God.
Hospital, and I told you I wasn't well.
Oh. Then again, I had the reverse of that as a kid. I remember I said to my mum, I don't feel well because I didn't want to go to school. And she totally called me out on it. And she felt my tummy and she said, it feels fine to me. And I was like, damn it, I got caught. And so I went to school.
So, yeah, no. Okay, let's move on here. And that, why do you do what you do? I mean, you know, I know that you're about impact. I know that you have a greater purpose. We both believe in a higher purpose. We both, you know, believe in being led by the Holy Spirit. And so I know that, you know, what you do is greater than just teaching social media. And that, what do you see? Like, what are you excited about, you know, continue to add the impact through what you get to do?
Yeah, look, social media really is just my excuse to get in front of people. It's what everyone wants to learn. It's what I know. But, you know, it's really not what we do. What I like to, you know, I guess my undercover title is Courage Whisperer. And, you know, that's what Greg calls me. It's what, you know, people will often say, wow, you just gave me so much courage just then. You know, I grew up in a situation where, you know, I felt like my value was tied to, you know, how valuable I was tied to my success. And, you know, as a kid, I knew I had a great purpose, but I also felt like I was less than everybody else. And I was constantly comparing myself to other people. I actually grew up alone with my dad. When I was very, very young, my parents divorced, and you know, to be honest, it was a really bitter divorce. My mum moved interstate and took all of us with her. And then for whatever reason, at 7 years old, I just put my hand up and said, I can't leave my dad back there, so I'm going to fly back and just live with my dad. And so from 7 years old till I was 18 and I moved out to get a job, I lived alone with my dad. And I didn't know my dad very well when this process started. So, you know, I really did lose my childhood and I had to grow up very quickly. And so I started my first business at 14 in the direct selling industry. And this industry literally changed my life. But then as I moved into a career and I sort of fell into, I don't believe we ever fall into anything, but without meaning to, I ended up in a sales and marketing career, which has shaped where I get to be today. But through that process, I always felt less than. Like I always felt like I was left behind. You know, I was never that kid at school that was super smart. I barely passed my subjects. I didn't go to university, and I remember telling you this story where I thought that in order to be a great marketer, the only way I could identify as that was if I had gone to uni. But life hadn't delivered me circumstances that allowed that to happen. And I actually couldn't have gone to university until I turned 21, even if I wanted to, because I ended up with my final exams in year 12 in hospital with glandular fever and could never complete them. And so my only option was I had to either do another year of year 12 or I was going to have to wait until I was an adult student and reapply. And I used to keep it quiet that I didn't have a uni degree because I thought I was embarrassed. I thought I wasn't as good as other people. And it's funny because over the years, as I developed my skill set in this space, and I've always been very devoted to learning. I love to learn, but you know, like all of us, we learn best the things that we're passionate about, that excite us, not the things that don't, which is why so many people don't succeed at school. But when they leave and they can choose what they learn, it all changes. Hopefully my kids don't listen to this because they'll throw one back at my face. But you know, it was funny because after a few years of this, of me keeping it quiet that I didn't have this uni degree, I actually I was running a workshop and I had some people come to learn from me, and I was teaching social media. At that stage, I wasn't doing it exclusively to the direct selling industry, but my my PA at the time comes up to me, and Rachel still works with us now. She's now our business manager and runs a huge part of the business with us. But she came to me and she goes, I just want you to know, you got a room of 50 people here that are learning from you today. The whole back row are the people from the University of Tasmania, and they're here to learn from you. And I went, hang on a second. No, they can't be here to learn from me. And she said, they've just invested $500 a person and they've sent along 5 people to learn from you today. So I sort of didn't know what to do with that. And after the session, they came up to me and they said, would you come and teach our marketing department how to utilize social media for marketing? And I was like, here I was for all of these years feeling less than and not showing up properly in this world because I thought that I needed a piece of paper and a box tick to say I was worth it. And these very people that needed to give me that piece of paper have come and said, we want to learn from you. And it just, it reminded me that there are so many people that are particularly women. And it's not that I just have a particular passion for women in business who feel like they can't step into all that they are meant to be because for whatever reason, they feel like there's a box that has to be ticked. They feel less than. And, I really, like you and I both believe that, those that are called will get given everything that they need. We've got everything around us. You've already got, I don't care what you believe. I don't care what your background is. For you to achieve your goal, your dream, your business, whatever it is that you're doing, you've already got everything you need around you right now and within you, whether it's people around you that you need to pull on or whether it's simply skills you already have. You've already got it all right there. But the question is, are you going to use it? And I was sitting back going, I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I've got what it takes. Well, all it took was a step. That was all I ever had to do was take a step. And, the call, get qualified. So just trust that you're already qualified. And what you don't know, you'll learn along the way.
I love that. The call will get qualified. And that's the reality of it. I mean, we are definitely, we all whether it's a piece of paper or whether it's not a piece of paper, it'll mean different things for different people. But I had that saying, for many years. I kind of used to beat myself up because I didn't have the formal qualifications. And yet, the hard knocks teaches a lot of stuff. And, again, like yourself, huge learn, so constantly putting stuff out there, but it really is. I'm reading a great book at the moment called Who Not, Who around you that will actually help you to achieve your goal. I think that's really, really important. Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. I have some questions I want to shoot at you as we finish off here. It's been an interesting conversation. I know that you said earlier on about questions, but I really always believe, that conversations where they're meant to go. And I love that because I always kind of believe that we'll be led. We'll be exactly that one person who listens is actually going to need, and that's why I look, whether I'm standing in a room of or it's from one. I always believe that there will be something that is going to land for the people we're supposed to hear time. So after all, we've gone on this conversation.
You said something to me a few years ago. I remember it was probably the second or third time I was speaking on stage. And again, that was something I'd never anticipated doing. It's now what we do constantly. And I remember ringing you this particular day going, you do this all the time. How am I supposed to do this? And you reminded me of two things. The first thing you said was, you are only there to impact one person in that room. There might be 300 people there. It could be 1,000 people there, but you're there to impact one person. So, don't worry about everybody else. Just show up for the one. And then the other thing you said to me was, it's none of your business what everybody thinks of you. So stop worrying about it.
Gosh, I'm very wise.
You are very wise. I know. I use that one often when I talk to people about doing Facebook Lives. So true.
But it's so true. And I had to, somebody taught me that away, and that we so worry about what everybody else thinks. But anyhow, so what's the first piece of advice? What's one piece of advice to your younger self? What would it be?
Oh, look, I've already said, I've already said two of them, which is be present in the moment and it's none of your business what other people think of you. Yeah. The other thing I would say to my past self is it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. You don't need to stay in it, but don't deny it and don't push it down because it's also got a place and needs to be loved. And you're feeling it for a reason, so let it be.
If you don't feel it now, you're going to feel it.
That's the other thing. It caused me a whole lot of pain squashing it all down back then. So if I just, let it out, I'd probably would have saved a whole heck of a lot of time as an adult.
So much cheaper later on in therapy. What's your favorite book right now?
Oh, again, I love reading. In our group that I mentor, we do a little book club. And so the book we're reading right now, which is one of my favorites, is called Believe It by Jamie Kern-Lima.
Yes.
You know this one? She's the founder of It Cosmetics, and she talks.
Yeah, I'm reading her other one at the moment, Worthy.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read that one yet. That's definitely on the list. But I just, it goes with a lot of what we've said today. It was that concept of she just didn't feel like she was as good as all of these other people out there, but she had a dream and she had a legacy she wanted to leave, and she really believed in what she was doing. And man, oh man, did she come up against some stuff, and she just kept pushing and pushing. And it's quite the story. It's a really powerful one.
She's a beautiful follow if you are looking for authentic leadership that have been super successful, a woman who started around her kitchen table and created a massive, massive company. Yeah. But the lessons along the way, and she has just kept it real the whole time. It's just, it's so beautiful. So I love it. I love it. What song do you listen to when you need to feel motivated?
I call this my game on song. And when I first started doing webinars and presenting, I started a little ritual, which was before I get on stage or before I present or do any kind of webinar, the energy you bring is important. But sometimes you also kind of need to fake it till you make it a little bit, because I get so nervous. The last time I spoke on stage, 30 minutes before I got on this, I think I rang you and told you this. I was in America 3 weeks ago. I was literally throwing up over the toilet. 30 minutes before I got on stage. So I have to have this little thing to help me. And so I've got a Game On song. I put it in my AirPods. It's Jump by Van Halen.
Oh, every time I hear that now, I'm going.
I know you. So before I get on stage, if you ever look backstage, you'll actually see me with my shoes off, jumping up and down with my AirPods in, and that's what I'm doing. I'm playing Jump by Van Halen. Yeah.
I love it. I love
Gives
it.
me
I love
false
it.
courage before I develop the real courage.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. No, I'm exactly the same. What quote?
One quote. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. And that's actually a proverb. And it comes back again to who you surround yourself with. But there's another one I've actually got written on my bedroom wall right now in chalk. And that is, when you sing about the fruit in your vineyard, you can't be focused on the weeds and the stones. And it's that concept that if I'm grateful, I can't also be fearful or worried or resentful. Like you've got to pick where your mindset is at. And so if I pick gratitude, that's where I'm focused on what I have got versus what I don't have.
Absolutely. The quickest way to be able to shift mental state is by stopping for a moment, taking some deep breaths, and just listing, 3, 4, 5 things that you're grateful for.
I think when I got married, you actually gave me a little plaque, and it's sitting on the wall in my kitchen right now, and it says, when you're grateful for what you have everything you need.
Amen.
Right.
Amen. So how can people find you? Because I know after listening, they're going to want to know more about you. I mean, besides your podcast, so we're going to make sure to link to your podcast.
Yeah.
And that honestly, you've interviewed some amazing people over the time. So I encourage people to follow you and to listen in. And it doesn't matter whether you're a direct seller or not. There is just so much wisdom there that comes from the different speakers. But besides that as well, as direct sellers, you add so much value. You've got a Facebook group and that as well. Do you want to tell a little bit about where they can find you and what that looks like?
Yeah, look, we're here to give back to the industry as well. I'm really passionate about seeing people thrive, not just survive. And I really want to see particularly women step into all that they're supposed to be. And so we've got a couple of ways that we can help people without it costing them anything. One of those is the podcast. It's called the Direct Selling Accelerator Podcast. And of course, we'll give you guys the links to that. And you can find us on YouTube or through any of your podcast streaming apps as well. But we also have a Facebook group, and that's where we update you on, Facebook's changes, social media tips for the industry, etc. And that's called Social Media for Direct Sellers with Greg and Sam. And we'll give you the link to that as well. It's a free community. And yes, this is specifically for direct sellers in that we're giving people information that relates to this industry, but my passion is for, I call them mumpreneurs, the women that are, they're not just identified as mum, they're also identified as women that want to have an impact, whether that is to one person or to thousands of people. And, if I play a small part in your world, even by you just simply listening to an episode that we have that, gives you some inspiration, then, again, you're my one that day. And I'm excited that I did my bit. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for adding the impact to so many lives. You really, I know, your vision, you and Greg, like what it is that you want to be able to do through Oksana, through all of the things that you're doing, your podcast, your Facebook groups, the trainings, the speaking, all of those. I know that you've got a massive purpose to be able to make a difference in people's lives. And I think that has become really evident as people are listening to speak to us today. So thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. Really, really appreciate it. Love you, darling girl.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's exciting. I didn't have to do the interviewing today.